from 2015 led the World Press Photo Foundation, transforming it from a photographic contest into an organization with a mission to put extraordinary pictures and the stories behind them onto a global platform, bringing together journalists, audiences, and professional partners. He produces exhibitions, festivals, and works with the museums and art foundations around the world, so he knows his stuff. This gives me the greatest personal pleasure, and is something I know that you will not just enjoy. You're about to hear the first-hand experiences of some of the most committed and bravest photographers who grace this wonderful exhibition. They're superb professionals, have very individual voices, but to get their vision to the wider world, they've also had to navigate not just the threat of violence and war, but prejudice in a world where, even in the 21st century, for some, women are still considered property. To me, they really are those beacons of hope that we often hear about. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emma Francis, Claire Thomas, and Paula Bronstein.
Thank you, Ray, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you for being with me here on the stage with all of us, elevating the voices of women in photography. Paula, you sit closest to me, but you have also been the one that has been in this industry. Do we call this an industry?
Yes.
Yes? Why?
Absolutely. Why not?
Why not? Okay.
It's definitely an industry.
Yeah, you've been with us in the industry for a long time. Do you find it remarkable that we're actually still talking about the subject of women in photography?
In some ways, yes. But, you know, I would say it's always an important subject. And there's always a lot to talk about. And we can always elevate our voices more and more. And educate, you know, in countries where there aren't that many women photographers. Mm-hmm. You know, in the US there's a lot. Europe, obviously, yes. You know, but some countries, some Asian countries, no, I would say.
Yeah. Do you see it as a do you have a role in furthering the position of women in photography? Or do you already have your hands full?
No, I've done some female-to-female workshops, you know, concentrating on giving more support. And I think, especially in some countries, women are very comfortable talking to other women about editing and all the elements, you know, emerging photographers especially, just starting out, they need more, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been in the business over 35 years, so, yeah.
One of the starters of women in photography and the position of it was the launch of Women Photograph, the website up on the big screen. Something that has been put together quite quickly. I was one of the first to support it through World Press Photo Foundation. Do you think it really has taken a position that matters and that makes a change?
Good question. I think it's great that it exists. It's more than just a website. It's really, they're doing a lot. You know, they've got their Facebook page, it's community. I'd say it's really a community. And Daniela's done a great job with it. And it's really expanded. They're working, you know, getting grant money and just, I would say they've just done a lot in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I think it keeps on expanding and expanding. I don't know how many are on the website now, over 400, I think.
Yeah, it's a long list, and it's been used by editors and curators all over. So
yeah, and so
if it has an impact, it's good.
Yeah, so if an editor wants to find a female photographer in Zimbabwe or whatever, go to the website and
yeah. Emma, you've been in the photography, we call it an industry now because Paula says so. You've been in the industry now for 3 years?
4 going on 5.
4 going on 5.
Yeah, 5
Time
this
flies when you're having fun.
It does.
Does this speak to you? Do you understand why this Women Photograph initiative has been taken?
For sure. I think one of the great things about, going into my 5th year of photojournalism is this kind of initiative was launched right as I started doing photography. And actually one of the very first things that I saw about photojournalism was a Netflix documentary called Conflict. And I saw Nicole Tung speaking about her experiences in Libya. And that was really kind of my first experience of women in photography. And easily and very quickly I found Women Photograph and browsed through their website and their pictures and Instagram. And it's always been a source of inspiration for me. And so I'm so lucky to have started into the industry when this was just beginning. I was very fortunate to have, some role models to look up to.
Yeah. In the preparation for this, I looked at some of these numbers. Claire, we discussed this briefly during the lunch in preparation for this talk. These are the number of lead photography on important publications. Did you ever realize that this was the divide in percentages before this was published? Did you ever think about it?
Yeah, I think it's quite clear when you work in the industry that there are far fewer women than men. But I also think that it's a really terrific time to be a woman in photojournalism. I think the numbers, clearly the numbers are very low, and we need to elevate the voices of women, photography of course, but I think there are more and more women coming into the industry, and we have so many incredible role models to look up to, like Paula, women like Carol Guzzi, so we have a lot of inspirational figures.
Yeah, one of the responses to Women Photograph came from Jungshi Kim. She got up a website called Trailblazers of Light. I like the phrase a lot. It has a beautiful sound to it. Pioneering women of photojournalism. Paula, we talked about it. This came a little bit out of this, hold on, we're talking about elevating, but there have been women in photography for a long time. So what I like about it now is that it came from there, but it now highlights many of the photographers that you have been working with or you haven't seen throughout the world. How much does this matter to you, to be going back and to show how long you and your fellow women photographer has been in the field?
I actually think Trailblazers of Light is fantastic because if any of you want to go there at some point, you have women listed going back to the start, but it's in 70s, the 80s, the 90s, so you can see a list of women who started in that particular decade. And so I started in the 80s, of course it's pre-digital, and so really a lot of she's going into the pre-digital era and the women who are working in that era. And it's really enlightening and educational for a lot of people, especially when you see the long list of women, And I think she was inspired to do it because she felt like a lot of the women were not getting credit, for what they'd done for so many years. So.
Yeah. Emma, do you also use this as an inspiration?
Yeah, for sure. I think when this initially came out, there was a lot of controversy about it, but I feel like it's a great catalog of the woman that started this initiative, and it's important to look at our history and where we come from so we can eventually, all collaborate together and encourage each other, because we're all in this together. We're all fighting the same thing, and we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's what matters.
Yeah. Claire, it's in the beginning when this initiative was there, and I as a man supported it, and many men in photojournalism or in photography did it. There also a little bit of a pushback from men I experienced, like, what is this all about, and why do we actually do this? Did you have any of these conversations as well, or is that something that only lives in the male side of photography?
Well, I guess some people have a problem with like the fact that we have to have these kinds of platforms and databases, but I think it's so important that we do have them, and it's, as Emma was saying, it's essential that we as women support each other and promote each other's work and create these connections and help all of us move forward.
Yeah. I asked you in preparation, can you send me some photos or some videos of you when you're yourself in action? That's always a difficult question, I think, when asking about these imageries with photojournalism, because no, it's not about me. But you have some of these shots, and one thing that really struck me is that actually all of these shots that you send me to, it looks so happy, and you're so enthusiastic out there in the field. This is you for the first time. Where in?
That was as soon as I entered Afghanistan, so December 2001.
Yeah.
And we stopped we were on the way to Kandahar, coming from Pakistan. And after 9/11, it took many weeks before it was safe to go in. There was a lot of media trying to get in at that point. And so this was the first day, and we were just stopping the car, and all these men crowded around, and
I can see it's your first day because your socks are still very white. Did you keep them like that, or is it something? I mean, your shoes are really ready for going into the field, but
yeah,
that's a little joke.
yeah.
But here it's I have several of them, and it shows to me that if you send this to me, this is where you really show that you appreciate your work, you enjoy what you do, and it's a little bit juxtaposed against what we very often see about difficult situations, which we will see later. There's a lot of things you encounter into the field, which is not always easy to digest.
Right, exactly.
How does that feel? This balance between being there and at the same time doing difficult stories.
Sometimes this is a good one. I don't know if everybody knows, these beautiful flowers are poppies. And it's
Poppy fields also in Afghanistan?
It's poppy field in Afghanistan.
Right.
Yes, but they're beautiful flowers.
Yeah.
Now we're going to Bangladesh.
Yeah, and I took some photos of you from you to just show also like beyond these photos where you seem very much enjoying traveling around. This is also where you have to navigate yourself. Bangladesh.
This is a drone shot of a refugee camp. I spent 3 months covering the Rohingya 2017, from the start of the refugee crisis when they left Myanmar. And as you can see, the camp that grew into a small city was the fastest growing refugee camp in the world at the time. So now there's over 800,000 who are languishing in crowded camps. I mean, today.
If you're in the field like that, do you encounter your colleagues? Were you alone there as a photojournalist?
No. Not when I was covering this story. This was a huge news story at the time. Massively big, very important story, because as you can see, how many Rohingya are trying to flee, and they're on a bank of mud in the middle of a rice paddy. And so for me to take this photo, I was standing in the mud.
Yeah. If you encounter your colleagues, do you encounter female photographers as well?
Yes.
What's the percentage?
I'd say depends on where you are, what you know.
Yeah.
I think it changes, but percentage-wise, I mean, it's still going to be
20/80.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think yeah.
Yeah, which
Pretty
is
accurate.
what you very
pretty
often
accurate.
And would you consider that your work has a different point of view, a different approach than the other 80%?
I would say I have a female signature, but I wouldn't completely say. I mean, it's just the way I interact with my subjects.
Right.
Of course, for me, especially this picture to me is, unfortunately this woman is passed away. It's a photo from Ukraine. It's a project I did on the elderly. who were living near the front lines in eastern Ukraine. And I'll be showing that on Saturday. So nobody had focused on the elderly and how they're affected by war, and so I felt it was very important to do that. So I made 3 different trips to Ukraine to document them.
I was navigating difficult territory, but by thinking, your approach and to be able to get close to them, it has to do with your personality, of course, but are you in the advantage as a woman to be there and to get close to it, or do you feel that it doesn't matter?
Sorry, I think to me, working in many different countries, you're working in different cultures. And so if you're working in a conservative Islamic culture, there's a certain way you have to approach to get access inside a home, to get permission from the male head of household first. You know, you have to respect the culture and realize, okay, this is what it takes to do the job in a particular, in Ukraine, I had an amazing fixer, and she really helped pave the way to get the pictures we needed. Without her, really, because it's not an easy place to work, Eastern Ukraine.
Yeah. Beautiful poetic photo. I had to put it on the screen because such a gentle photo to look at. Emma, more happy photos of photographers in the field. You sent me 3, and I think it's really good to get an idea about what it is, in what circumstances you are. What are we looking at? Where is this?
Yeah, so this is in Kenya, and this was at right after the presidential elections in 2018, and I was photographing Raila Odinga's inauguration, self-inauguration.
Yeah.
And this was actually one of the best days of my life, because it was the moment that, I guess the thing is as I remember Raila Odinga was at the podium, and there was thousands and thousands of people just jam-packed into this space to watch him be inaugurated. And I remember I was with a bunch of journalists standing trying to get a shot, and I was being pushed and shoved, and I was sweating, and I felt like I was going to pass out, and I was trying not to fall off the stage from being pushed so much. And I just had this moment of just being like yanked back and forth by security, and I just looked up at the sky, and I just thought, this is the best day of my life. This is what I want to do. I am so enjoying this. And so I think this picture really captures that day.
Yeah. Lots of your work is in Africa. There was Kenya. I have 2 other photos of it. Where is this?
This is in Lebanon, so this was actually one of the photos that I took in my exhibition here.
Yeah. And this one, another part of the globe again?
Yeah, this was in Nigeria, photographing, water resources.
Yeah. I have some of your work as well to go through, because it showed a selection of 10 photos. I selected a couple of them. All these places where you go. You told me that a lot of it you initiate yourself. You fund it yourself. So it seems to me that you're not primarily at first concerned about publications or getting assignments. Is that what you are at now?
Pardon?
Is this where you are at now with your career?
I think initially when I first started photojournalism, I was like, okay, I was just telling Paula this the other day, I wanted to do photojournalism. I was like, all right, cool, I'll just go get a job as a photojournalist. And that wasn't the case. And so I think I really discovered that obviously publications are very important, but what's more important is learning how to tell a story, build a story, and how do you achieve that? I mean, taking pictures is the easiest part. It's how you get there. It's how you work. It's how you talk to people. And so it was, for me, it's just all about that experience. And I'm slowly evolving, but yeah.
Is there anything that you could mention that you would feel that it makes it difficult to enter the field as a female photojournalist?
I think like with any kind of work that you do as a woman, there's this societal standard where obviously maybe you kind of have a little bit of a disadvantage, and you do have to prove yourself a little bit more than the rest of your colleagues. But at first, I was very bright-eyed, and I was excited, and I thought the world was just going to be, great, and everyone was going to accept me. But I learned quickly that you really have to stand up for yourself and push yourself. And if you want to do something, you have to make it happen. No one else is going to make it happen for you.
Do you feel any pushback from colleagues, like, oh, there's a new kid on the block, competition, or who is she?
I don't know if I've really experienced that outright. I mean, people will talk no matter what. So, but I think for me, however long I intend to do this, I'll always welcome whoever is coming in new or older. It's all about learning and growing no matter how long you've been in the industry.
Yeah. More happy photos of photojournalists. Beautiful. Is this the equivalent of a selfie with a real camera, as we say?
It
real
is,
camera?
yes. I was attracted to the blue color of the wall, and I liked the reflection. So yeah.
But this is the real one of you. Where is this?
So this is in Iraq during the war against the Islamic State. It's near the city of Mosul. This was actually in a village, a tiny village in the desert, and it actually was my first day on the front line in Iraq. And here we were going from house to house with a unit of local militia fighters as they were pushing ISIS out of the village. And we were taking cover inside these abandoned houses, and bullets were actually hitting the walls around us. But even in these intense environments, somehow the soldiers still find ways to make us laugh and smile and make the situation a little bit lighter.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a clip of what it is to be there and to drive around. I was watching it, and every time I thought, like, oh, if you turn a corner, something's going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. But just the fact that you are in this Jeep and driving through this rubble, it's an experience by itself. If you drive around like that, also this situation, is this also a situation where you're primarily with men around you, or do you also see female colleagues?
I'd say it was primarily men, yes, but I also spent a lot of time with this team of medics, and there were quite a few women part of that team. But I also worked with quite a few female photojournalists, so I felt like we actually had this very nice collaborative group of women and they were all very, very independent, just terrific photojournalists. Yeah. So I had a kind of a different perspective. There were more men, of course, but I did somehow feel like I was surrounded by very powerful women.
Yeah, that gives you a good feeling?
Yeah, definitely. It helped a lot, and I think we all provided some emotional support for each other as well. We had a space where we could talk openly about our experiences, how that made us feel, and also share advice on contacts where the battle was moving forward. That was half of the battle for us. Finding out which units of the Iraqi forces were actually having operations at which time. So I felt like it was really nice to have that group of women and men. It wasn't just women, but yeah, we shared a lot of information.
How long are you active as a photojournalist?
As a photojournalist, I think it's been about 7 or 8 years. Yeah. And before that, I was taking photographs, but only part-time.
Yeah. Do you experience a change? I mean, we talked about the emergence of women photograph. The discussion is there. Do you feel that there's a change in the working field, or do you get approached differently?
I guess before I was in Iraq, I was working in Palestine, and I was covering the refugee crisis, and I don't really remember meeting that many female photojournalists covering those stories. But then once I was in Iraq, yeah, it was. I felt like there were just quite a large number of females, actually, of women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you cope with all these difficult situations? What does it do to you as a person?
I get asked that quite a lot. I think I try to remember, first of all, that it's always my choice to be there, and how lucky I am to be able to leave at the end of the day and go to a safe place. But mostly, I think it was having the support of the medics, because actually during this was the hardest time. Obviously, these photos were taken during the last few weeks of the offensive. That's when I spent the time with the medics. So I was mostly with medics more than photojournalists, and having their support, I think that really helped me cope with it.
Yeah.
And I think also I'm quite emotionally open. You know, I try to process those emotions at the time, rather than store things up inside and then address them later. So maybe that helped too.
Yeah. Is it a strange experience to see your photos now here, beautifully printed, framed
Yes.
on the wall? How does it touch you in a different way?
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite surreal, actually. I never imagined I would see these pictures printed, and especially the size. It's quite an extraordinary experience, I think. You know, we just don't see pictures printed so much these days. We're so used to seeing images on our phones or on our computer screens.
Yeah.
So it's quite a vivid experience to see them printed like this.
It's a stark difference because I'm going to show a little clip where you all also in the middle of it is this very still image on the wall that we can take in. But here's a clip where you actually are walking around, and this is where you have to find these images.
So it's interesting because when I talk about the clinic, I'm so used to saying it's a clinic, but really what it is just an abandoned storefront. And the medics worked alongside Iraqi forces to set up very makeshift, rudimentary clinics where they would just treat patients, you know, civilians who were fleeing across the front lines, and they would just stabilize them before they were sent to the hospital.
Yeah. One of the other scenes that you ended up with is the oil fires. This is in Iraq?
It's also Iraq, yeah, also part of the same story, basically. So these are the oil wells which were near Mosul that ISIS had control of. And when Iraqi forces were advancing into the city, the ISIS militants, they detonate. I think they blew up 19 of the oil wells. So these fires were enormous. And it took firefighters several months to extinguish them.
You live in New York?
Now I live in New York.
And if you walk in the street or you're meeting people in New York and you tell, I'm a photojournalist, and they find out that you're doing this work, do you ever get this surprised look? Really? You?
Yes, I think I do, yes. It's quite strange, actually. When I tell people that, it's hard for them to relate, I guess, for a lot of people. So they don't always want to talk about it. I mean, I could talk about Iraq all day long. I mean, it was such a big experience in my life. So
Yeah.
sometimes I miss having the chance to discuss that, you know, and connect with people who have similar experiences.
Does it annoy you that if people would hear about it and they say, how is that as a woman to be there? Is that a question you get asked quite a lot?
Yes, it is. And I just say that I didn't experience any difference, at least I'm not aware of. I don't think I was ever treated differently because I'm a woman. I certainly never got that sense. I just felt like it's hard. It's a hard industry, regardless of your gender. It's quite difficult to get into. It's hard to capture the attention of editors. There are so many people doing it, and there's so much content being produced. So I try to focus on the industry rather than just being a woman. Yeah.
Emma, does that apply to you as well? You live in Paris.
Yeah.
same question. People would, if they say, yeah, I'm going to go I'm going to shoot a story, and I'm going to go to Africa. I'm going to go to war. How do people react to that?
Usually very badly. I feel like most people try to tell me not to. They try to lecture me about, it's dangerous. It's this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I go, how do you know it's dangerous? Just how do you know it's dangerous? And they go, well, I've read about it online. I'm like, that's my job.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you about everything that's happening. Obviously, not just the dangerous parts, but when people ask that question, they don't realize the subconscious influence that media has on us. It's available on our phones. And so I think it's very surprising when obviously I'm a very petite, small person, and going to these places, a lot of people just automatically portray their fears on me, and ultimately that's not my responsibility.
Yeah. Paula, 35 years of these questions, or is it not so much? Must be the same question.
Well, when you were talking about, just to follow on that, first of all, there's a very old saying, it goes back to my newspaper days in the US, if it bleeds, it leads. So the stories that make the front pages, of course, are the most, that's why you get those comments, about, oh my God, you're going there, oh, it's,
Right.
You're going right to the front line,
The whole place is in war, and you're
the
not
whole
going to be
place
safe
is,
ever.
yeah. So a lot of times, it depends what people see on the news, and they think it's so much worse than it is, or they think the whole area is affected when it's just one part, especially me covering the protests in the US, Black Lives Matter, in Portland, Oregon. Trump gave the idea the whole city was burning. It was, it was a few blocks radius where all the protests were going on every night. So it depends how is it being portrayed in the media.
Yeah. Do you feel that the question I asked Claire about? Do you feel that there's been a change in how the media works with women and women photojournalists? Is it getting better? Is it so bad, and is it getting better?
I think it's definitely getting better, and I don't know that it was ever. To me, it's never been negative on my side. I've always had tremendous support.
Yeah.
Working at newspapers, and then of course Getty Images for a really long time. So, yeah.
But what is it that is getting better for you? Can you have a couple of examples? Do you feel that you get more asked, or is there a deliberate choice by editors made for female photojournalists?
Well, since I've been freelance, I would say, work-wise, it's more of a struggle. We all know that, there's a lot of us out there and not enough work, and day rates have not gone up in many years in some cases. Some of the biggest newspapers in the US, the day rates have not gone up in a long time, and that would go for the wires as well. So it's a struggle. I would say, when we get into the financial aspect of it, it's a struggle. And, because I've been doing it a long time, obviously I have savings and all that, I'm not, but it does surprise me sometimes how, in terms of, if you love and have this passion for editorial photography, it is tough to make a living at it. Like I said, it's some of the biggest newspapers, New York Times was a very low day rate, and then finally, I think what was it, 5-6 years ago, they went up to what is now considered, a very decent day rate, but that took quite a while.
Yeah. Equal pay for men and women, or don't know, maybe?
As a day rate for freelancers, it's the same day rate.
Same? Oh,
yes,
good.
yes,
Good.
yes. I think what's interesting in terms of pay, if we're getting into that, especially since the pandemic, are you getting hazard pay? Are you getting paid if you're going into a home, and taking on that extra risk of possibly getting COVID, are you getting paid for that? Which is the same, if you're going into a combat zone, are you getting paid for that?
Yeah. One of the difficult topics in this industry is harassment. Females getting harassed by men. I haven't actually heard about the other way around, but maybe it's out there. How big is this problem, harassment?
Well, I can tell you, I've experienced it in certain countries that were, you know, where if I'm in a crowd, a very tight crowd, that's an all-male crowd, I've experienced it a number of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, even at funerals in Gaza, you know, Afghanistan. It's cultural. It's difficult to deal with. I understand it, but I have, you know, if I'm going to work in this environment, I have to be able to somehow deal with that, you know, without getting so angry, you know, because it's just a view of Western women, you know, and how men in, you know, certain countries are looking at us coming into their country. So,
Emma, you have been in it now 5 years, 6 years. Is there a problem with harassment?
You know, I think as a woman, I don't care if I'm walking down the streets of Paris. I don't care if I'm walking down the streets of my hometown where I grew up. I don't care if I'm walking down the streets of Iraq. I'm always taking precautions about who's in the corner, who's following me, who's behind me, who's that man in the restaurant. You know, for me, it's an all-time thing. It doesn't matter where I am. Yeah. And of course, I've experienced, you know, different types of harassment wherever I go, whether it's, you know, in the field or not. So for me, it's just something that's always there. Yeah. So.
Harassment from photo editors or colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that power dynamic of, okay, you're a young, impressionable photographer, you know, and I have a higher status as a photo editor or photographer, and so, you know, it maybe if you let me flirt with you a little bit, maybe I'll take you on an assignment or something, maybe I'll give you a job. That's happened to me a couple times before. So it's all about the power dynamic, and, you know, not to say that everyone is like that, obviously. There's really more good people than bad, but it's still there, and it's something that needs to be addressed more often.
Can you second that, Claire? That experience, power dynamics, access, or? I think the mic is off. Yeah. Can you hear me now? No. I think somebody will come and fix the microphone. Yes. I'll get back to you once you're back online. There's one coming. You're going to get a special microphone now. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I've been exceptionally lucky in my career so far to work with extremely supportive editors, both men and women. So I've never had any negative experience with the power dynamic like that. The same with my colleagues. Working in the field, yeah, of course, as women, we're vulnerable to harassment. And I think then it's so important to have local knowledge and cultural knowledge and sensitivities. And for that, it's the role of local fixers that Paula touched on earlier is so important. I had a few moments when I was in Iraq where I wasn't quite sure if I was getting myself into a potentially difficult situation, and I looked to the fixer, and he helped me and told me, you know, that I should probably move to somewhere else or whatever like that. But I would say in general, I've been very lucky. And actually in Iraq, I would say I felt, in terms of harassment, I felt safer in some ways than I have felt in other cities and, you know, in Europe or in the US. I felt like the Iraqi people were extremely respectful and protective of me, particularly because I'm a woman.
Yeah. Is there any place you wouldn't go?
I wouldn't go?
Are you fearless?
I wouldn't say I'm fearless, no, but I can't think of anywhere I wouldn't go, no.
Yeah. No? You, Emma, do you have a place where you would be thinking like, maybe not?
Not at this moment. You know, whatever story I'm drawn to, if you know, it's always weighing the risk and reward of every assignment. So for me, if there's a story that I'm truly passionate about and it's somewhere where I want to go, I evaluate the risks, and if I decide it's not worth it, I don't go.
Yeah. Paula, is there any place in the world where you haven't been yet?
Lots of places I haven't been. Yes, my God. You know,
Which one is on your list where you're like, after
never
all
been-
these years, I want to go to...
you know, I've never been to Russia.
Never been to Russia.
I haven't, you know, no, there's lots of places I haven't, especially many countries in Africa that I haven't been, South America. Obviously, I know Asia very, very well after being based there for so many years. But still, even in Asia, if we think about that part of the world, I'm always experiencing something new, no matter where I go there, you know. Yeah. Even though I've been to Nepal so many times, you know, in 2019 I photographed a yak festival. Well, I had never done that before, you know. So it's always something new and different, and a really fantastic challenge for me. I think in terms of where wouldn't I go, I think I'm very cautious in terms of, you know, not just jumping into some place that's very dangerous. I've lost colleagues, you know, and friends, and I just think it's just better to be safe than sorry. That's it. So always really being careful before I jump into some place that's dangerous.
I enjoy very much looking at all of your work, also preparing for this, and I think that I believe these photos that we have up on the screen where you enjoyed it. Do you think, final question for all three of you, I'll start with you, Claire. Do you think we're still talking about this topic 5 years from now?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah?
I mean, I'm hopeful that things are improving and will continue to improve. But yeah, I think for the
Are you
for the years to
optimistic
come.
about it?
Yes, certainly. And I think events like this and having conversations like this are extremely important in encouraging young women to join us in the industry.
Yeah. Emma, are you optimistic?
Yeah, of course. I always try to be optimistic. I think it's going to be an ever-evolving conversation, for sure. It's just one of those things. But hopefully 5 years from now, we're a little bit, you know, it's not something we have to think about. It's second nature. That's what I hope for.
Yeah. Paula?
Definitely I'm optimistic.
Are we talking still about this after the next 35 years?
I don't think we will be. I think there's so many more women in the industry now than years back, you know. So I think and so many fantastic female photographers, you know.
See.
That you know. So I think the industry just keeps on changing, and it's just. I think what we'll be talking about is maybe more newspapers that are folded, and how, unfortunately, how we have to adapt and keep on changing to the industry today, you know.
All right.
Especially in the editorial world.
Yeah. Different conversation.
Different conversation.
We'll come back to it after 35 years. Paula, Emma, Claire, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and some of your work, and I look forward to looking at your work again and listening into your stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having us.
Paula, Claire, Emma, and Lars, thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. For young women wanting to work in this world, a tough one, as Claire said, regardless of gender. The three photographers you just heard from are just about the best role models you could wish for. So listen to them, look at their work, but above all, be inspired. Thank you.